Beloved listeners, dear family seeking truth in a world of illusions, there's a game being played all around you, every single day. You can see it, you can feel it, but most people, they don't understand the rules. They watch the wealthy accumulate more wealth, effortlessly, exponentially, inevitably, while they themselves work harder than ever and fall further behind, and they think it's luck or connections or inheritance or some secret they're not privy to, but it's none of those things. The rich keep getting richer because they're playing a different game entirely, with different rules, different strategies, different objectives. And the tragedy, the cruel, heartbreaking tragedy, is that you could be playing that same game, starting today, with whatever resources you have. But first, you need to see the game for what it is. You need to understand why the system is designed to concentrate wealth at the top. And more importantly, you need to learn how to use that same system to build your own wealth instead of just feeding theirs. Let me tell you a story that will make you angry. It should make you angry. Two men, born in the same town, same year, 1975, both smart, both hardworking, both ambitious. We'll call them David and Michael. David came from a working-class family. His father was a machinist. His mother was a secretary. They taught him work hard, save money, don't take risks, be grateful for a steady paycheck. David followed that advice religiously. He got a degree in engineering, got a good job at a manufacturing company, worked his way up to senior engineer, made it on $95 a year by age 40. He saved 10% of his income. He maxed out his 401. He bought a modest house. He paid down debt. He did everything right, everything responsible, everything society told him to do by age 50. David had accumulated $420,000 in net worth. House equity $180,000. Retirement accounts $240,000. Not bad, better than most. He felt proud. Michael came from a middle-class family. His father was a small business owner. His mother was a real estate agent. They taught him something different: acquire assets, use leverage, make money work for you. Think like an owner, not an employee. Michael got the same engineering degree, got the same type of job, made about the same salary. But here's what he did differently. At age 28, he bought a duplex, lived in one unit, rented out the other. The rent covered his mortgage. He lived there for free while building equity. At 32, he kept the duplex as a rental and bought another property the same way. At 36, he had 4 rental properties. They generated $2,800 a month in net cash flow. At 40, he used that cash flow and the equity in his properties to buy a small business, a boring business, a laundromat. The business generated another $3,500 a month in profit with a manager running it. By age 50, Michael had accumulated $2.8 million in net worth, real estate equity, business valued at $800,000, retirement accounts of $400,000, plus he was generating $6,300 a month in passive income from assets he owned. Same starting point, same income, same city, same 40 years. David worked harder. David was more responsible. David followed all the rules. Michael worked strategically. Michael took calculated risks. Michael broke the conventional rules. David $420,000, still working, will work until 67. Michael $2.8 million, could retire today, works because he wants to. The difference, nearly 7 times more wealth. But more importantly, completely different lives. David is trapped, one income. If he loses his job, Michael is free. Multiple income streams. If one fails, the others carry him. David trades time for money. Every single day. Michael owns assets that generate money whether he shows up or not. This isn't a story about luck. This isn't a story about inheritance. This is a story about understanding the rules of wealth. David played the employee game, work. Save, repeat. Michael played the owner game, acquire, leverage, compound. And the owner game, it's rigged in favor of those who play it. Not rigged unfairly, rigged mathematically, structurally, systematically. The rules of money, taxes, and wealth accumulation, they're designed to reward owners and punish workers, not because of conspiracy, but because of how the system fundamentally operates. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why the rich keep getting richer. Not so you can be angry, not so you can feel victimized, but so you can understand the game and start playing it yourself. Because the greatest lie you've ever been told is this: the system is rigged against you. The truth, the system is rigged, but not against you. It's rigged in favor of anyone who understands the rules and plays accordingly. Rich people understand the rules. Poor people don't. The question is, which will you be? 2. NARS Reason 1. The rich understand the difference between income and wealth. Let me start with the most fundamental distinction, the one that separates wealth builders from wealth dreamers. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you own. Most people spend their entire lives focused on income. How can I make more money? Should I ask for a raise? Should I get a second job? They're obsessed with the paycheck, with earned income, with trading time for dollars. But here's what they don't understand. Income doesn't make you rich. Income makes you comfortable. Wealth makes you rich. And wealth comes from ownership, not labor. Let me show you why. Person A makes $200,000 a year, high income, impressive, but they spend $185,000. They save $15 and they have no assets, no investments, no businesses, no real estate. They're making good money, but building no wealth. If they lose their job, the income stops and they have nothing. Person B makes $75,000 a year, modest income, but they spend $50,000. They invest on $25,000 every year. They buy dividend stocks, rental properties, small businesses. After 20 years, person A still has high income but no wealth. They're trapped on the treadmill, dependent on that paycheck. Person B is but $850,000 in assets, generating $40,000 a year in passive income. Person B can quit their job. Person A cannot. Who's richer? The rich understand this instinctively. They focus on acquiring assets, not maximizing income. Yes, they often have high income too, but that's not what makes them rich. What makes them rich is that they convert income into assets immediately. Every dollar earned is a soldier sent to work to buy things that generate more dollars. The poor and middle class, they convert income into expenses. New car, bigger house, nicer vacation, latest technology. They consume their income. It's gone forever. The rich, they deploy their income. It works forever. Let me tell you about a doctor I knew. Made $400,000 a year. Sounds wealthy, right? He wasn't. He had a $2 million house with a huge mortgage, 2 luxury cars with payments, private schools for kids, country club membership. His lifestyle required $380 a year to maintain. He saved maybe $20 a year. In 20 years, $400,000 saved. At age 60, he couldn't retire. He had to keep working, keep earning, keep maintaining. High income, zero wealth. I knew a plumber, made $65,000 a year, but he lived on $40,000, invested $25,000 annually in rental properties. In 20 years, he owned 8 rental properties, worth $2.4 million, generating $8,000 a month in cash flow. At age 55, he retired. His properties paid him more than his plumbing business ever did. Low income, massive wealth. This is the first secret. Income is temporary. Wealth is permanent. The rich focus on building permanent wealth through ownership. The middle class focuses on increasing temporary income through labor, and that's why the gap widens every single year. Reason 2, the rich use leverage as suit. Here's the second reason wealth concentrates at the top. The rich understand leverage. They use it aggressively, intelligently, strategically. The middle class has been taught to fear leverage, to avoid debt, to live within their means. And that fear, that debt aversion, keeps them poor. Let me be very clear about something. Leverage is not inherently good or bad. It's a tool. Used correctly, it multiplies wealth exponentially. Used incorrectly, it destroys you. The rich have learned to use it correctly. The poor use it incorrectly or avoid it entirely. Let me show you what I mean. A middle-class person wants to buy a rental property. It costs $200,000. They save for 10 years. Finally have $200 in cash. They buy it outright. The property generates $1 in a month in net cash flow. That's $12 in a year. They're earning 6% return on their $200,000. Not bad. A wealthy person wants to buy the same property. They put down $40 and finance it on $60 at 4%. Their mortgage payment is about $750 a month. The property rents for $800. Net cash flow after all expenses $300 a month. $600 a year. They're earning 9% return on their $40,000 investment. But here's where it gets interesting. The middle class person has $200,000 deployed, earning $12,000 a year, one property. The wealthy person has $200,000 deployed too, but across 5 properties. Those 5 properties generate at $18,000 a year in cash flow, $6 more than the debt-free approach. Plus, they're building equity in 5 properties instead of 1. As properties appreciate and tenants pay down mortgages. In 20 years, the middle-class investor owns 1 property worth maybe $30,000 to $50,000 and collected $240,000 in rent. The wealthy investor owns 5 properties worth $1.75 million combined. Collected though $3 is $60,000 in rent. Built $800,000 in equity. Same starting capital, radically different outcomes, the difference, leverage. This applies to everything, not just real estate, businesses. The rich use leverage to buy businesses. They use other people's money, other people's time, other people's skills to build enterprises. Investments. They borrow at low rates to invest at higher returns. Knowledge. They leverage other people's expertise by hiring the best advisors, lawyers, accountants. Networks. They leverage relationships to access opportunities others never see. The middle class. They do everything themselves. They avoid debt like poison. They think leverage is dangerous. And it is dangerous if you don't understand it. But avoiding it entirely, that's guaranteeing mediocrity. 2. Let me tell you about two business owners. Owner A saved 200,000 and used it to start a small business, 100% equity, no debt. Owner B saved 50,000, borrowed 150,000 at reasonable terms, started the same business. Both businesses succeeded. Both grew to be worth 500,000 in 10 years. Owner A's return. Turned 200,000 into 500,000 and 50% gain. Owner B's return to 50,000 into the 3 to 50,000 dozen is 600% gain. Plus owner B had 150,000 left over to invest in other opportunities. The rich understand leverage multiplies returns, both upside and downside. So they use leverage on assets that appreciate and generate income. They don't use leverage to buy depreciating consumer goods. No debt for cars, TVs, vacations. But for assets, productive assets, they leverage intelligently. And here's the thing. The tax code rewards this. Interest on investment property mortgages, tax deductible. Interest on business loans, tax deductible. Interest on your credit card debt for a vacation, not deductible. The system is designed to encourage leveraged asset acquisition. The rich use these rules. The middle class doesn't even know they exist. Reason 3, the tax code is written for owners, not workers. This is where people get angry. And they should be angry, but not at the rich, at their own ignorance of how the system actually works. Because the tax code, the complicated 1,000-page monstrosity that nobody reads, it's not designed to punish the rich. It's designed to reward certain behaviors. Behaviors that build businesses, create jobs, provide housing, stimulate economic activity. And those behaviors, they happen to be exactly what wealthy people do. Let me show you how this works in practice. David, our engineer, making $95,000 a year. But before he sees a penny, the government takes their cut. Federal income tax 22% bracket, state income tax 5%, Social Security 6.2%, Medicare 145%. By the time he gets his paycheck, about 35% is gone. He takes home $61,750 out of his $95,000. Then he pays property tax, sales tax, gas tax, every purchase tax. His effective tax rate, close to 40% of his gross income. He's working January through May just to pay taxes. Michael, with his rental properties and business, he makes a $95,000 salary too, pays the same taxes on that. But his 4 rental properties generate $33,600 a year in cash flow. On paper, they show a loss because of depreciation, maintenance expenses, interest deductions. That $33,600 in cash flow, taxed at 0% because the loss offsets it. His laundromat business generates $42,000 in profit. He deducts equipment purchases, vehicle expenses, business meals, home office. His taxable income from the business may be the $15,000 taxed at lower rates. Same year. David pays $38,000 in total taxes. Michael pays $24,000. David's effective rate 40%. Michael's effective rate 18%, $14,000 difference every single year. Over 20 years. $280,000 more in Michael's pocket. This isn't cheating. This isn't illegal. This isn't even unethical. This is the tax code working exactly as designed. The government wants people to provide housing, create jobs, invest long-term, take entrepreneurial risk. So they reward those activities with lower taxes. 2. David provides none of that. He's an employee. He trades time for money. The tax code has nothing to reward him for. So it takes 40% of his income. Michael provides housing, employs people, takes risk. The tax code rewards him. He keeps more of what he makes. Here's what makes this even more powerful. As wealth grows, the gap widens exponentially. When you make money from assets instead of labor, you pay capital gains tax, not income tax. Long-term capital gains of 15-20% federal. Compare that to the 37% top income tax bracket. Dividends from stocks qualified dividends taxed at 15-20%, not the 30-40% that wage earners pay. Inheritance. The wealthy pass assets to heirs with stepped-up basis. Decades of gains untaxed. Let me give you a real example. A worker earning $200 a year pays about $60,000 in taxes, takes home $140,000. A wealthy person with $5 million in dividend stocks earning 4% annually. That's $200,000 in dividend income. Federal tax on qualified dividends at 15-cent gal, $30,000, takes home $170,000, same income, half the taxes. Why? Because one is rewarded for owning productive assets. The other is penalized for selling their time. And it compounds. There are $30,000 from their $140,000 after-tax income. The wealthy person saves $100,000 from their $170,000 after-tax income. Next year, that $100,000 generates more dividends, more assets, more wealth. The gap doesn't just persist, it accelerates. Now here's what nobody tells you. You don't have to be rich to use these rules. Michael wasn't born wealthy. He just learned to play by the rules that favor owners. You can buy one rental property. You can start one side business. You can invest in dividend stocks. And immediately you start getting access to deductions, credits, preferences that workers never see. 2. I knew a teacher making $52,000 a year. She bought a duplex, lived in one unit, rented the other. Suddenly she could deduct mortgage interest on the rental half, property taxes on the rental half, repairs and maintenance, depreciation on the building. Her sixth in arrows in annual rental income showed as a $4,000 loss on her taxes. That loss offset some of her teaching income, reduced her tax bill by thirds $200. She didn't get rich overnight, but she stepped into the owner tax system. The middle class sees this and screams, tax loopholes for the rich? No, they're not loopholes, they're features. The system is designed this way, on purpose. The question isn't whether it's fair. The question is, will you use it? 2. Reason 4, the rich have access to better opportunities. This is the reason that's hardest to accept, because it feels unjust, but it's reality. The wealthy have access to investment opportunities that regular people never see, not because of conspiracy, because of how opportunity flows. When a promising startup needs funding, they don't advertise on Craigslist. They go to wealthy investors, angel investor, venture capitalists. You need to be an accredited investor to even participate. That means net worth over $100 million or income over $200,000. If you don't meet those thresholds, you're legally excluded from these opportunities. When a real estate developer finds an amazing deal, an apartment building priced 30% below market, they don't list it publicly. They call their network, their wealthy contacts, their previous investors. By the time regular people hear about it, it's already sold. When a business owner wants to sell their company, a profitable business generating $500 in a year, they don't put it on a website. They hire a business broker who markets to qualified buyers. Buyers with capital, with experience, with resources. Regular people never even know it's for sale. This is called information asymmetry. The wealthy have access to better information earlier through better networks. 2. Let me tell you about a deal I saw years ago, a small manufacturing business, profitable. $2 million in annual revenue, $400,000 in profit. Owner wanted to retire. Selling for $1.2 million, 3 times earnings. Incredibly cheap for a business that's solid. A wealthy investor I knew heard about it through his network, bought it in 2 weeks. Within 5 years, he'd expanded it. Revenue doubled, profit tripled. He sold it for $4.5 million, turned $1.2 million into $4.5 million, plus collected $2 million in profits during ownership. A regular person never knew that opportunity existed, never had the chance to compete for it. Not because they weren't smart enough, not because they weren't capable, because they weren't in the network where that information flows. 2. This applies to everything. Real estate deals, business acquisitions, private equity, angel investments, pre-IPO stock, the best opportunities, the ones with the highest returns and lowest risk. They're accessed through networks, not markets. And wealthy people have built those networks over decades. Now here's the key insight. You cannot access those networks instantly, but you can start building them today. Join real estate investment groups, attend business networking events, connect with entrepreneurs. Start small, one deal, one connection, one opportunity. Over years, you build the network that gives you access. I knew a man who started as a regular middle-class worker, but he joined a local real estate investor meetup, attended every month. First year, he learned, just absorbed information. Second year, he partnered with a more experienced investor on a small duplex. Put in $15,000. They renovated and rented it. Third year, someone at the meetup brought him a deal, off-market property. Great price. Fourth year, he was bringing deals to the group. By year 10, he'd done 22 deals, built $1.8 million in net worth. None of those deals were advertised publicly. All came through the network he built. The wealthy aren't lucky. They're connected. And connection is something you can build if you prioritize it. Reason 5, the rich understand compound growth are. This is the most powerful wealth-building force in the universe. And the wealthy understand it at a level the middle class never grasps. Compound growth isn't linear. It's exponential. And exponential growth, given enough time, creates obscene wealth. So let me show you why this matters to investors. Both start with $10,000. Both earn 10% annually. Investor A withdraws the gains every year, uses it for expenses. After 30 years, they've collected $30,000 in gains. Still have the original $10,000, total $40,000. Investor B reinvests everything, never withdraws. After 30 years at 10% annual return, their $10,000 has become $34,000. Same starting amount, same return, massively different outcome. The difference, compound growth, too. But here's where it gets really interesting. The gains aren't linear. They accelerate dramatically over time. In year 1, that $10 earns $4,000. In year 10, the portfolio earns $2,500. In year 20, the $67,000 portfolio earns $6,700. In year 30, the $158,000 portfolio earns $1,800. Notice what happened. By year 30, your money is earning more in 1 year than you started with. Your capital is working harder than you ever could. This is why the wealthy get exponentially wealthier, because they have capital that's been compounding for decades. A 25-year-old who invests $10,000 and lets it compound for 40 years at 10%, that becomes $42,000. A 45 who invests $10,000 and lets it compound for 20 years, that becomes a $67,000. Same investment, different time horizon, 7 times different outcome too. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They start young, or they teach their children to start young. A wealthy family gives their child a 10 Zillow on their 18th birthday, invests it, teaches them to leave it alone. By the time that child is 58, that $10,000 is $452,000. A middle-class family gives their child $10,000 on their 18th birthday for a car. By the time that child is 58, the car is in a junkyard. The money is gone. This is generational wealth building. This is how dynasties are created, not through one big score, through decades of patient compounding. And here's what makes this even more powerful. When you have assets producing income, you can reinvest that income into more assets. This creates compounding on top of compounding. Let me show you. You buy a rental property for $200,000. It generates $12 in a year in cash flow. Year 5, you've collected $60,000. You use that as a down payment on a second property. Now you have 2 properties generating $24,000 a year. Year 80, you've collected another $72,000. Down payment on a third property. Now 3 properties generating $36,000 a year. Year 11, another property. Year 13, another property. By year 20, you own 8 properties. Total value $2.4 million. Total cash flow to $96,000 a year. You started with $140,000 down payment. You never added another dollar of your own money. The assets bought the next assets. Compound growth through reinvestment. This is how the wealthy operate. They don't spend the income from assets. They reinvest it, buy more assets, which produce more income, which buy more assets. The snowball grows and grows and grows until the income from assets exceeds anything they could earn from labor. The middle class, they buy 1 rental property, collect the $30,000 a month, spend it on lifestyle. 20 years later, they still have 1 property. The wealthy investor, they reinvested that $100,000 a month. 20 years later, they have 8 properties. Same starting point. Wildly different mindset, exponentially different outcome. Reason 6, the rich think in decades, not years. This is the final piece, the philosophical difference that underlies everything else. The wealthy think long-term, decades, generations. The poor think short-term, weeks, months, maybe years. And that time horizon difference, it changes every decision. A poor person gets a $5,000 windfall. They think, what can I buy? New TV, vacation, pay off credit card. Immediate gratification, short-term thinking. A wealthy person gets $5 and they think, where can I deploy this for maximum long-term return? Down payment on asset investment that compounds. Delayed gratification, long-term thinking. 2, the poor optimize for today. The wealthy optimize for decades from now. And compounded over a lifetime, that difference is everything. Let me tell you about 2 young men. Both got 10,000 gifts from grandparents. Man bought a used car. enjoyed it for 5 years, sold it for $3,000, and net cost $7,000 for 5 years of driving. Man B invested the $10,000 in index and forgot about it at age 65, 40 years later. Man A had a distant memory of a car he once owned. Man B had $452,000. The car is long gone. The investment compounded for 4 decades. This applies to every decision. Career choices. The wealthy will take a lower-paying job that offers better long-term learning and connections. The poor take the highest-paying job today, even if it's a dead end. Education. The wealthy invest in skills and knowledge that pay off over decades. The poor skip education because it doesn't pay immediately. Relationships. The wealthy build networks slowly, investing in relationships that might pay off in 20 years. The poor only maintain relationships that provide immediate value. The wealthy are playing the long game, always. They'll sacrifice today for a better tomorrow, every time. And here's why this matters so much. When you think in decades, you make better decisions. You don't panic, sell in market crashes. You know it recovers over time. You don't spend windfalls on consumption. You invest for compound growth. You don't job hop for 10% raises. You build career capital that pays off exponentially. You don't damage relationships for short-term gains. You build networks that create opportunities for life. 2. Let me tell you about a decision I made in my 30s. I was offered 2 opportunities. Opportunity A, high-paying job, $200,000 a year, prestigious, impressive. Opportunity B, partnership in a small firm, lower salary, $100,000, but equity ownership. Most people would take opportunity A, immediate income, status, security. I took opportunity B. Why? Because I was thinking in decades. For the first 5 years, I made less money than I could have. That hurt. But I was building equity, ownership, a stake in something that could grow. 20 years later, my equity in that firm was worth $8 million. The high-paying job, the person who took it made $40 million in salary over those 20 years. But they owned nothing. When they retired, the income stopped. I own an asset that generates income forever. Long-term thinking. It feels like sacrifice in year 1. It feels like genius in year 20. How to join them, the roadmap from middle class to wealthy. Now let me tell you the truth that changes everything. Everything I've just described. The tax advantages, the leverage, the compound growth, the networks, the long-term thinking. None of it requires you to be born wealthy. None of it requires a trust fund or an inheritance or wealthy parents. It requires knowledge, discipline, and time. The system that keeps the rich getting richer. It's not closed. It's just obscured. They don't teach these rules in school because schools are designed to create employees, not owners. But once you know the rules, once you see the game for what it is, you can play it. Let me be brutally honest with you about something. You will not become wealthy overnight. You will not find a shortcut, a hack, a secret that lets you skip the process. The journey from middle class to wealthy takes 15, 20, 25 years of consistent, disciplined action. But here's what nobody tells you. You're going to live those 15, 20, 25 years anyway. The question is, at the end of that time, will you be wealthy? Or will you still be middle class wondering what happened? So let me give you the specific roadmap, the exact steps, not theory, not inspiration, action. Step 1, shift from consumer to owner. This is the foundational mindset shift. Everything else builds on this. Right now, you probably think of yourself as a consumer. You earn money. You consume it. You repeat. You need to start thinking of yourself as a capital allocator. Every dollar that flows through your hands is a soldier in your wealth-building army. Some soldiers support your current lifestyle. They're necessary. But some soldiers must be sent to acquire assets, to build your future. Here's the rule I want you to follow. For every dollar you earn, decide immediately where it's deployed. 7% maximum to lifestyle, 20% minimum to asset acquisition, a 10% to emergency reserves until you have 6 months of expenses. Once you have your emergency fund, that 10% shifts to asset acquisition too. But I can't afford to save 20%. You say, yes, you can. You just haven't prioritized it. The average American spends $300 a month on dining out, the $200 on subscriptions and entertainment, $150 on impulse purchases. That's $650 a month, $700-800 a year. That's your 20% if you make $39 in a year. You don't have an income problem, you have a priority problem. Let me tell you about a woman making $42,000 a year. She was convinced she couldn't save anything, living paycheck to paycheck. I had her track every expense for 1 month. Coffee $120, eating out $340. Streaming services she never watched in 65. Impulse Amazon purchases 180. Total 2005 in completely unnecessary spending. She didn't believe me until she saw it herself. 2. She made one change, committed to saving $500 a month before spending on anything else. It was hard for 3 months. Really hard. Then her lifestyle adjusted. She found free entertainment. She cooked at home. She questioned every purchase. 5 years later, she'd invested $30,000. Her portfolio was worth $42,000 with growth. $60,000 invested. Portfolio worth $96,000. 15 years later, $90,000 invested. Portfolio worth $187,000. At age 52, she had nearly $200,000 working for her, generating $8,000 a year in dividends from $500 a month she couldn't afford. The difference between her and people still living paycheck to paycheck. She shifted from consumer to owner. Step 2, acquire your first income producing asset. This is where the game begins. Your first asset, not your primary residence. That's not an asset unless you're renting out rooms. An actual asset. Something that generates income. You have 3 realistic options. 2. Option A, dividend stock Cs. This is the most accessible. You can start with 100. Open a brokerage account at Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Buy shares of dividend-paying companies or dividend ETFs. Companies like Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Realty Income, AT&T, or ETFs like VYM or SCHD. Your first 100 invested at 3.5% dividend yield generates $3.50 a year. That's nothing, you think, but you reinvest it. Buy more shares. Next month, you add another 100. Next month, another 100. After 1 year, you've invested $200, earning about $42 in annual dividends. After 5 years, you've invested $6, portfolio worth maybe $700 or $200, earning $2 to $52 in annual dividends. After 10 years, well, $12,000 invested, portfolio worth $16,500, earning $500 in annual dividends. It seems slow at first, painfully slow, but this is how every wealthy investor started, small amounts. Consistent investing, patient compounding. Option B, a small rental property. This requires more capital, but it's accessible to most people. You need $15,000 for a down payment, depending on your market. You can use HA loans if it's your first home. Buy a duplex, live in one unit, rent the other, or buy a small single-family home in a working-class neighborhood. 2. Example, a $150,000 property, 20% downtown, 30 the lows, and mortgage at 7%, eat $800 a month. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, $200, $1,500 a month. Net cash flow, $300 a month, $3,600 a year. That's a 12% cash return on your 30 ales. And plus, you're building equity as tenants pay down your mortgage. Plus, the property appreciates 3-4% annually. In 20 years, that property is paid off. Worth $270 the Lozan. Generates $18,000 a year in income from a $30,000 investment. One property, held long-term, life-changing wealth. Assess option C, a side business. This requires the least capital but the most effort. Start a business that can eventually operate without you. Service business, online business, local business. Examples, lawn care service, e-commerce store, consulting practice. You start it while working your regular job, nights and weekends. First year, make you a $10,000 in extra income. Invest it. Second year, you hire someone part-time. Make $20,000. Keep the $15 after paying them. Third year, you hire full-time. System is running. You oversee. Make $40,000. Keep $25,000 after expenses. Fourth year, you have a manager. You're barely involved. Make a $50,000. Keep $30,000. Now you own an asset, a business that generates income without your daily labor. You can sell it for 3-4x annual profit, or keep it for passive income. This is how many wealthy people started. A side business that became a cash-flowing asset. Pick one of these 3. Just one. Don't try to do all 3 at once. Pick the one that fits your situation and capital, and start this month, not next year. Step 3, reinvest everything. This is where most people fail. They acquire an asset, it generates income, and they spend that income. They buy the rental property, collect $300 a month, use it for lifestyle expenses. They buy dividend stocks, collect a $5,000 dividends, withdraw it. They start the side business, make a $15,000 extra, spend it on a vacation. No, stop. This is the critical error. In the accumulation phase, which is the first 15-20 years, you reinvest everything. Every dividend gets reinvested to buy more shares. Every dollar of rental income goes toward the next property down payment. Every dollar from the side business gets invested in stocks or real estate. This is compound growth on steroids. Assets buying assets buying assets. The snowball effect. Let me show you the math. You have $300 a month from rental property. You spend it on lifestyle. 20 years later, you still have one property. But if you save that $300 a month toward the next down payment, in 3 years, you have $10,800. Combined with equity from property 1, you buy property 2. Now you have $600 a month cash flow. In 2 more years, you have enough for property 3. Now $900 a month. In 18 months, now first at $200 a month. By year 10, reinvesting every dollar, you own 6 properties. By year 20, you own 14 properties. Total value, $3.8 million. Total cash flow, 4, there's $200 a month. Same starting point. 1 decision, reinvest instead of spend. Step 4, learn the tax gaming. Once you own assets, you need to learn how to keep more of what you make. This means understanding the tax code. Not all of it, just the parts that apply to you. Hire a good CPA, not H&R Block. A real CPA who specializes in real estate or business owners. Cost you $500,000, $1,000 a year. Value, they'll save you $5,000, $20,000 in taxes annually. Learn about depreciation on rental properties, business expense deductions, retirement account strategies, capital gains vs. ordinary income, and 1031 exchanges. And the wealthy aren't smarter about taxes. They just have advisors who know the rules. You can have the same advisors for $100, $500 a year. That's $125 a month. Less than most people spend on cable and streaming. Priority, not luck. Step 5, build your network. This is the step that feels uncomfortable, but it's essential. The wealthy got wealthy partly through the opportunities their networks provided. You need to start building that same network. Here's how. Join a local real estate investment group. Attend monthly meetings. Join entrepreneur meetups or business networking groups. Connect with people on LinkedIn who are doing what you want to do. Attend conferences in your field or investment area. Offer value first. Help others. Share knowledge. Be generous. It feels awkward at first. You're the new person. You don't know anyone. But show up consistently. For a year, 2 years. Relationships build. Trust develops. Opportunities flow. I knew a man who felt completely out of place at his first real estate investor meeting. Everyone seemed so experienced, so knowledgeable. He almost didn't go back. But he kept showing up, month after month. By month 6, people knew his name. By month 12, someone asked if he wanted to partner on a deal. By month 18, he'd done 3 deals through connections from that group. By year 5, he was the one bringing deals to the group. Your network is your net worth. Over time, build it now, even if you're not ready, especially if you're not ready. 2. Step 6, think in decades. This is the mindset that makes everything possible. You're not building wealth for next year. You're building it for 20 years from now. Every decision, every sacrifice, every investment, it's for your future self. Here's what I want you to do. Calculate your age, add 20 years. That's future you. Future you is going to exist. They're going to wake up 20 years from now and live the life you're creating today. Will future you be financially free or struggling? Will they own assets generating $10 a month or still trading time for money? Will they thank you for the sacrifices you made or resent you for the choices you avoided? Every time you're tempted to spend money on consumption, every time you want to skip investing this month, every time you think, I'll start next year, think about future you, looking back, hoping you made the right choice. 20 years will pass whether you build wealth or not. The question is, who will you be in 20 years? The brutal truth about joining the wealthy. Let me tell you something nobody wants to hear. Joining the wealthy class is simple, but it's not easy. The steps are straightforward. Live below your means. Invest the difference. Acquire assets. Reinvest the income. Learn the tax game. Build networks. Think long term. Simple. A child could understand it. But here's why most people fail. It requires delayed gratification. You have to say no to things today that your friends are saying yes to. No to the new car. No to the bigger house. No to the expensive vacation. While your friends are posting Instagram photos from Europe, you're collecting rent checks. While your coworkers are buying new trucks, you're buying dividend stocks. While your family is questioning your cheap lifestyle, you're building assets. For years, you will look like you're behind. Your friends will seem more successful, more comfortable, more put together. You'll question yourself. Am I doing this right? Should I just enjoy life now? But then, around year 10 or 15, something shifts. Your assets start generating serious income. Your net worth starts growing faster than your salary. Your investment returns exceed your employment income, and suddenly, you're not behind anymore. Your friends who looked so successful, they're still trapped, still dependent on their paychecks, still one layoff from catastrophe. You own assets that generate income whether you work or not. You have options. Freedom, security. They're still running on the treadmill you stepped off years ago. This is the path. This is how you join the wealthy, not through luck, not through inheritance, not through one big score, through consistent discipline, long-term execution of simple principles. The choice. So here we are, at the end of our journey together. You now understand why the rich keep getting richer, not because the system is rigged against you, but because they understand rules you didn't know existed. They focus on assets, not income. They use leverage intelligently. They exploit the tax code legally. They access better opportunities through networks. They understand compound growth. They think in decades. 2. And now you know these rules too. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? 2. You can close this video and change nothing. Go back to the same patterns, the same thinking, the same trajectory. 20 years from now, you'll be exactly where you are today, just older. Or you can start today, this week. Open the brokerage account. Start saving for the rental property. Launch the side business. Hire the CPA. Join the networking group. Small actions, repeated consistently, compounded over decades. In 20 years, you'll be somewhere. That's guaranteed. The only question is, will you be wealthy? Or will you still be watching wealthy people and wondering how they do it? The wealthy aren't special. They're not smarter. They're not luckier. They just know the rules, and they play by them. Now you know the rules too. The game is open. The path is clear. All that's left is the choice. Will you play